Welcome back to Wake Up Call from the Pro Siding and Windows Studios. The talk line is 940-763-1290. In the studio with me this morning, Trey Serrala, and also now with us our guest. He is the recent winner of the Republican primary for Texas 30th District seat, and that is Pat Fallon.
Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for coming up here this morning. And you, I just want to start with this. What a win in the March primary. Holy smokes.
No, thank you. It was,
it
was a good night.
Well, everybody, we watched for months, the back and forth with the two of you. But we saw this race shaping up, and what I thought was going to be a very tight race between the two of you, between you and the incumbent Craig Estes. And it looked to me like you probably were pulling ahead quite a bit. But by quite a bit, I'm thinking 51-49, 52-48. What was the final number?
62-23.
Yeah. I mean, that was like, that was a pretty significant win.
Well, and also won Wichita Falls,
right.
which is, obviously was Estes' stronghold for so many years, being from Wichita Falls. So
I know you had, positive feelings about this going all the way through it, but did you foresee such a gap between the two of you in that race?
Well, I didn't. And to be candid, we started in May when we did our first poll. We were at 4%.
Yeah.
It was 38-4, but which was ironically encouraging because he was not above 50 and he was not even above 40. So there was something there.
Yeah.
And then we polled again in September and it was 34-15. We were down by 19.
Wow.
And then in November it was about tied. And then something happened between November and December that I can't quantify, but we polled again on my birthday, which is December 19th, and we were up 27, and it just never went back. By January, he spent about $1 million all in, and about 600,000 on TV, and that really didn't do anything. Now, of course, I wouldn't talk about that in January, February when we get our polling numbers back, but we are consistently up between 20 and 25. But you never know if they're accurate. Ask Hillary Clinton,
Yeah.
but that was a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we had one outlier poll that was 61-19.
Wow.
And it ended up, of course, being the most accurate. I didn't believe that one either.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Wichita Falls, we were up about 10 or 15 points, or Wichita County, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was also encouraging as well. So I told my staff, I said, listen, when early voting numbers come out, we're going to be looking at 14 counties in the district. I'm just going to look at Wichita. Because if we're close in Wichita, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
If we're up or even by a point. And when we checked at 7:05, and they don't give the percentages, so we had to do a little math, but it was obviously really good. And then we were up, we had 59, we were at 59 points, which 4 words, by the way. I love Wichita County.
My gosh. Well,
for years, like I said, that was kind of that was always kind of the assertion you'd hear around Wichita Falls as well. We don't want this seat to go down to the Metroplex. That was always the fear. If it was not Wichita Falls, it was down to the Metroplex. Which actually, if anybody was thinking, it probably was going to at some point go away from somebody who was from Wichita Falls directly because of the population growth away from Wichita Falls. There's so many people. There's that population down there is growing so much in that area. There's more and more people. But winning in Wichita Falls or Wichita County, which would have been Estes' stronghold, was a major accomplishment for sure.
Well,
Showed that there was something there.
Yeah, and it wasn't geographic, which was odd. In a district this large, it typically can be. You see some shifts. But in Collin County, which is the easternmost county, we got 60%. And in Wichita County, the westernmost, we got 60%. And, that's actually heartwarming in a lot of ways. And so we did a little election analysis, and the highest that Mr. Estes got was in Wichita County, which was 28.88%. So he didn't even hit 29. And then and that was the best county. In his worst county was only 19%, and that was over in Grayson. And our best county was Parker, ironically, not even our home county of Denton.
And I have heard people here in Wichita County express that one of their fears is that Pat Fallon is going to win in November. He's going to be sworn in. He's going to serve the first term, and it's all going to be great. And then by the second term, he's going to forget all about the northern end of this district.
Well, that's one of the reasons why the very first function I went to after the election was in Wichita County.
Yes.
And that's why I'm here today. That's why we're doing a thank you event tonight at Half Pint at 5 o'clock downtown. We're also, our first 4 town halls, which we promised to do all over the district, will be in Wichita County. There's going to be April 23rd and 24th. 23rd, we're doing Iowa Park at 5 or 5:30, I'll check. And then Electra at 7. And then the very next night, April 24th, we're doing Burke Burnett at 5. And then Wichita Falls at 7.
Okay.
And, it could be, because, history is so important that it wasn't only Craig Estes that held the seat, it was Tom Haywood. And then it was Farabee before him. And I believe the person before him was also Wichita Falls. So this has been a Wichita Falls seat, if you will, for 40, 50 plus years, maybe even longer.
Yes.
So it had to be acutely sensitive to that. Now, Wichita County is also where my Texas journey began. I was stationed at Shepherd in 1991. I lived here and worked here for 12 years.
Right.
So I have a strong connection to the county as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Pat, what have you identified as the first, 2, 3, 4 key things that you're going to have to work on or you're going to be focused on once you've won the November election and you're sworn in January and the next session takes off like that? What's the key things that you're going to have to focus on, that you want to focus on?
Well, I guess, Mike, big picture, we have to look at Texas, where we are now, obviously still a rapidly growing state. We're going to be probably coming in the 2020 census about 30 million. And there's some alarming statistics that I saw 5 years ago when I was serving on the Human Services Committee in the House.
Yeah.
For instance, in Medicaid birth, or all births in Texas at the time, 56% of the births were paid for by Medicaid.
Wow.
That is an unsustainable and alarming figure, largely due to so much, illegal immigration, but not solely because of that. And we have a shifting demographics in the state, and we need to focus as a state to find more money for ISDs for vocational training. Because if we don't have a skilled workforce, we're not going to continue to grow. In some of the areas of the state where you have rapid growth, the bottleneck is not in the materials to build homes, not in the demand for those homes, or the capital to buy those homes, the labor. So that's got to be one that we work on.
Yeah, we have a 3% unemployment rate here in Wichita Falls. I mean, it's pretty tight here. The labor market's very tight. And if you're looking for skilled labor, you really got to look for it. And there's a lot of companies here, manufacturers in particular, that can't find help. They've got, the jobs are out there. I've heard a number of like 120 openings at various companies around the county. And because the unemployment rate's so dadgum low, they're not attracting people in for it. The employment pool is not here. Every restaurant in this city has got a help wanted sign up. They can't keep helping restaurants in this town. They just can't. It's tough to fill those positions, and somebody leaves, moves away or whatever, and then you got to go find somebody to fill that position, and you can't find them. So I think you're right. Recently, let's see, when did we passed the bond for the Career and Technology Center with the ISD, 2 years ago, Trey? 3 years ago?
I was on the school board when we did. Yeah. 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay.
Have you visited the new Career Education Center?
No, I'm looking forward to doing
it. Yeah,
to do that.
It's a wonderful facility. And
it is impressive.
I mean, you talk
impressive.
About some real job skills being learned there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a true building trades. There's more to it than just the building trades and your auto mechanics and auto bodies, because there's robotics, there's actually teaching, there's medical sciences, there's kind of that sort of thing. But the skilled trades, the building, the plumbing, the HVAC, the electrical, that's all being taught there.
Right.
And it's really wonderful to go in there and see. If you ever get a chance, just anybody in general, if you get a chance, make an appointment, go by and check that out. I mean, you paid for it. I mean, if you're a citizen of Wichita Falls, your tax money paid for it.
Pat,
go see what's going on.
That's the move we got to make toward it across the state, not just here, but all over the state, is more training like that. I mean, that's what we've got to do, right?
We have to. We're not going to. We'll go the way of California. We're not going to continue to thrive. And I think any legislator's job really isn't And unfortunately, some look toward just the next election, or just if they're going to serve for 10 or 15 years, that's where their focus is. Our focus has to be, what's the state going to look like in 2050? And we have to think about that while we act now. Because if we don't, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
You can't think short term. You got to think longer term, and you do have to look at where you're going to be in 30 or 40 years or whatever. Wichita Falls, I think, as a city, is getting a little better about that. I think we're starting to think a little more long term and not so much short term, and that's a help for us, I think. But the whole idea of term limits comes up.
Love term limits.
Politics all of the time, and I have made the argument that on the national level with Congress, the only way we're ever going to really have term limits is if we do it through an Article 5 convention of states, because they're not going to self-impose it. We're going to have to impose it upon them. I don't see any other way to make that happen. If we can't get it done at the ballot box, then we're going to have to get it done constitutionally. What are your feelings briefly here, Pat, on an Article 5 convention of states? Does it scare you? Are you okay with it? How do you feel about that?
Now, what scares me is deficit spending at the federal level that accumulates a $20 trillion debt. So we already have a federal government that is a runaway government.
Right.
And we need to, reel them in and rein them in. And I voted and always have been supportive of an Article 5 and also term limits. In fact, I filed a term limits bill 4 times. And I've never gotten a hearing on that term limits bill. Never even gotten a hearing on it for Texas, because, of course, we can't impose. We have to change the the Constitution to impose it on Congress. But we can impose it on our state legislators here.
Right.
And I think we should impose it on ourselves. And our politics is the art of the possible. So I don't even, in the bill, I grandfather everybody in now and just say it would be in moving forward. I would self-impose, but they won't even talk about it. I don't know why. And listen, after just campaigning for 10 months in a race where I ran against an entrenched incumbent that spent $1.5 million and raised $1 million, that's the power of incumbency. It's very difficult to do that. And without financial resources, you can be the young Winston Churchill. We could get in a time machine, go back and get Winston in about 1910 and bring him back here in this race, and he would have lost this race if he didn't have the financial resources, because the incumbent would have owned the message. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really for and in favor of term limits.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, Pat, if we can, the illegal immigration issue. Of course, I know where you stand on this. I'm not going to ask you that, but
it's all in the signs.
Where are we? Trump wants to build this wall that would cover some percentage of the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yep.
That has been put somewhat in jeopardy, it seems, with the omnibus bill that was signed a few weeks ago. And we really don't have he's trying to use the military to get it built. He's getting a lot of pushback from Congress on that. It seems we still have this resistance from the federal government to do their job of protecting the border.
Well, certainly a resistance from the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. We have the means to do it. We don't have the will to do it as a country. And if we don't have a nation is defined by borders, language, and culture. Yeah. And the fact that you ask anybody that lives on the border on our side, the majority of the people that live on that border want it secure.
Right.
Because they are facing a narco state within just a few miles where, kidnappings and crime are rampant. In fact, if you report on the cartel activity in Mexico as a journalist, you get killed. Nobody's talking about that on this side of the border. The fact that the federal government should control our border, but we have de facto let the drug cartels control. Because what a lot of folks don't realize is everything that crosses that border now gets taxed by the cartels. It's not just narcotics. The coyotes, the people. If you don't pay up and they catch you, they will saw your head off with a chainsaw. I have seen the videos. They're horrifying. Yeah. And that's why when we voted on $800 million for border security the last 2 sessions, respectively, I was an enthusiastic yes, because we need to do everything we can to secure the border to protect Texans, because as a legislator, our number one priority is public safety and then education, because we can't educate anybody if we're not safe.
Right.
I agree.
And when you have, and then I asked when I did a few border tours, and I asked the Department of Public Safety, Director McGraw, said, what percentage of the Mexican federales and law enforcement are corrupt? And he kind of snickered. And he said, oh, about 98%. The Mexican Marines are a pretty good outfit. But other than that, they're working for the cartels too. It's devastating. And we have to secure that. And that's why the New York Times, when's the last time you saw the New York Times put that on the front page?
Right. Yeah.
Or the Washington Post.
Right.
Or for that matter, even the morning news. They just don't do it. They just ignore that. And we don't really need to secure the border. That's just kind of red meat. Yeah, we do. And in Texas, this is why too. We spent about $63 billion on Medicaid. And then about the same amount on education, K through 12 and higher ed. And those are two our biggest budget items that are almost take up 85% of the budget. And that's what illegal immigration affects, is Health and Human Services. Puts a huge strain there.
Yeah.
Some estimates on education are between $5 billion and $8 billion a year just in Texas.
Wow.
And when you come over here illegally, and you live in an apartment, and there's a lot of people in that apartment, that unit's not producing that much tax revenue, property tax revenue. And yet we are having to educate 3, 4, 5 kids. We're upside down. But that's the model that's growing. That's the demographic that's growing rapidly more than any other. And with 56% of Medicaid births being paid by Medicaid in Texas, where are we going to be in 5 or 10 or 20 years if we don't get a handle on this?
And given all that, if the federal government continues to not do their job and not secure the border properly, then it falls on us as a state to secure our portion of that border. We have to. Where do we come up with the money?
Right. And because the federal government is the one entity that can really do it, we don't have the money to do it the way we'd want.
Right.
And to really lock it down. We in Texas have the will. At least a lot of us have the will to do it. Because it's just, again, it's patently unfair. And so I looked some things up because, of course, you get called names when you talk about this.
Oh, yeah.
The left. They I don't even want to repeat what they say. So I looked some things up, me and my staff, for a month or so. Number one, there are 4.5 million people in the world trying to get to this country illegally, doing it the right way, waiting in line. Sometimes that takes up to 30 years to do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trey's wife was one of those
My
people.
wife's from England.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And she immigrated legally.
Yeah.
Right.
It took her several years and probably $10,000.
Right. 95% of those actually it's 4.3 million people. 95% of those 4.3 million people are people of color. They're not from Europe, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. So this racist argument to say that I'm for legal immigration, but I want to crack down on illegal immigration has anything to do with race is absurd on its face. What I want is fairness, because Americans are about fairness and a meritocracy. And so why should we favor one nation state over any other? Well, we should, and it should be America, not Mexico's best interest, but our best interests. And our best interests are to look at the talent around the world, in Africa, and in Asia, and in South America, and in Europe, everywhere, Australia for that matter too, not just one state that happens to touch our border. And so I suspect really what we're looking at that no one will talk about is it's the Democratic Party and the left wanted to take as many people as they can, get them across that border illegally, because 3 out of 4 of their descendants are voting Democratic. Yeah. And they're trying to, to put their thumb on the scale to say, then we'll make Texas purple and then blue. It has nothing to do with what's in the best interest of our country.
Right.
That I don't think is in the best interest of our country.
You served in the Texas House. What kind of, are you seeing the same kind of pushback from Democrats in the Texas legislature that we're seeing from Democrats in the U.S. Congress?
On this issue, yeah. And in fact, I think they're taking their orders from D.C.
Yeah.
And it's the same talking points. And going through just SB4 when we passed the ban on sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
That was a tough day. We were called all sorts of, sticks and stones.
Yeah, exactly.
But what was allowed to be said in the House, in the Texas House, was just beyond the pale. Because, but that's their rhetoric. It's not about, what did SB4 actually do? Let's talk about that for a second. It simply said, if you're arrested and you're not in the system, amongst other things, we can ask you, are you here legally?
Right.
Because you're preying on, mostly, the very people that live around the border or live in the cities that have a majority minority.
Right.
So we're trying to protect all Texans. All Texans.
Right.
Millions of Texans are people of color. It's about merit. That's what we're focused on. That's what conservatives care about.
Right.
We're not into the identity politics. I quite frankly don't care what gender you are, what God you pray to, what you look like. Talent and ability comes in all shapes, sizes, and shades. That's the future of the Republican Party, is to get that message out on radio shows like this and on television, and to not let the left own that narrative and own that message.
Amen to that. We were talking about kind of on that same vein earlier this morning about Republicans, Democrats, and all this stuff. And the divisions are wide, but the Democrats, it's like the socialists and communists invaded the Democratic Party about 50 years ago and co-opted the thing, and now it's, they're the party of feelings. Everything it's about how you feel, and they're the party of the little guy. They're the party for the poor and the downtrodden. Good God, nothing could be further from the truth.
I think the party of the handout and the lazy now. Yeah. I mean, that's the difference. That's why Trump won.
Well, they're Santa Claus. They're going to give everybody everything.
Well, and it's run by all rich white people. Right. I mean, they can talk. You could be the poor or the trodden, but it's mostly rich white people.
I got news for you too, folks. Most of your most powerful Democrats in Washington are multi-millionaires
and old.
Every single one.
All white people.
Yeah, and all white and mostly old.
Nancy Pelosi,
Bernie Sanders. I mean,
Charlie Schumer,
Uncle Joe. I mean, all of them are they're old white folks.
Get it right. It's dirty Uncle Joe. Get that right, okay? It's dirty Uncle Joe. All right, we were talking a little bit about the welfare state basically here, and where we are. How do we really turn the tide in Texas? Because that's what we can affect here, right? We can affect Texas right now. How do we turn the tide here?
We need to stop rewarding bad behavior. When you reward bad behavior, you're going to get more of it. So we need to rein it in and reduce the benefits that people have that are able-bodied that choose not to work or make bad decisions. I remember in the 90s, I think it was ironically a Democratic governor of Maryland that had suggested that if you're on welfare and you have one child, that you should have the patch, the contraceptive patch, so you can't have so you can't have any more kids. Sounds like a pretty darn good idea to me. We don't want to encourage that bad behavior and really steal the narrative back from the left. For instance, they'll say, I just read an article in the Texas Tribune claiming that in Dallas County, people of color don't earn the same amount of money. In fact, it was 60 cents on the dollar of a white person. That is completely out of context when you have massive illegal immigration, people that have just gotten here, people that don't speak the language. What I want to see, and that doesn't exist, by the way, is a study that says we're looked at folks that graduated from the same college with the same major with the same GPA, and do that, look at that along demographic lines to see if there's a difference. Because then if there's a difference, we have an issue. Yeah. But you can know there's not going to be a difference. And the left would bury something like that.
Trey was talking during the break about his kids and how motivated they were and to succeed. Both of my children have had jobs since they were 16 years old. Mm-hmm. Since they were legally eligible to hold a job, they've held a job. And they've both driven really nice vehicles, and they've paid for them.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. Mom and dad helped them get them, but they paid for them. Okay. And it's incredible. It comes down to what they're taught at home, for starters, what the environment they're brought up in. But we have this culture that's been created in our society, this culture of dependence, this slave culture that is the welfare state, that's been perpetuated by the Democratic Party now for over half a century. Well, we got to break that cycle.
A very smart man once said, if someone else is paying your bills, they owe you. And I told you I was going to steal that.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. They own you. Top to bottom, they own you.
Yeah.
They're paying your bills.
I was having lunch with Alan West maybe 3 months ago. And he sits there and he tells me, Pat, on the plantation, they used to pick cotton or harvest cotton. Now they're harvesting votes.
Yeah.
And I went, whoa, that's powerful. But listen to the Democratic Party. Listen, that's why they're always stirring up this racial identity and these identity politics, because they're getting about 92% of the African-American vote nationwide. Yeah. If that was reduced to 85% or 80%, the Democratic Party won't win another national election. So that's why they have to keep. They can't have African-American folks thinking for themselves and going, you know what? I don't know if I'm a conservative Republican, or a liberal Democrat, let me look at the issues. They want them just automatically to vote D.
Pat, thank you for being here this morning. We're at the end of the hour. Real quick, if people want to ask you questions, if they want to learn more about you, where do they go? Who do they call? What do they do?
Okay, my cell phone number is 214-507-4861. They can go to FallonForTexas.com. And as I said before, the 4 magic words. Thank you, Wichita County.
All right. Pat Fallon, thanks very much for being here.